Much of life, much, it's a very technical term. Much of life is abstract until we actually go through the thing, see the thing firsthand. We have this experience, then it's like, oh, I always knew intellectually that this was the case, but now it's really been driven home. It's become very real. It's moved from the abstract to the very concrete, to the very real. Things like getting married, having children, getting older, all of these kinds of things, dying, becoming disabled, retirement. And as I find myself about halfway through being 46 years old, maybe even a little bit over the halfway point at this point, I am personally experiencing some of these things. And although I've been working as a financial advisor for the better part of 25 years, some of this stuff is still abstract to me. And it is, what's the right term? I'm just so conditioned to it because I am swimming in all day. It's like asking a fish what water is. The fish is like, what do you mean? Um, I don't know if that's appropriate or not. I think that you kind of get it. But so it's like asking a fish what water it is. I'm immersed in it, but until you see it firsthand, like for example, my mom is going through the process right now of using a long-term care policy. So she's been paying the premium for 20 years, and we made the right decision about getting the policy, and now she's using it. So while I've helped people in the past, certainly utilize benefits of products that they have purchased, this is just a little bit different. So I totally get it. I understand why these concepts are a little bit hard to get our brain around. I guess more importantly is how do we catalyze change? Because how do we actually start proactively moving in the direction of the thing that we want? Or rather, the thing that we know that we're supposed to do, but it's not quite real yet. That's what I'm interested in thinking about, talking about. I'm interested in helping people to remove any mystery, remove any confusion around really what it takes to go from wherever you are right now to the level of to wherever the undiscovered country is for you. Financial security, financially successful, buying a home, getting out of credit card debt, eventually retiring. So stepping away from full-time employment. And you're a person who might say, well, I'm just going to work until I die. Very well. But this is a conversation about making work optional and having the ability to, just on the outside chance that when you're 75 years old, you're not going to be wanting to work 40 hours a week. How are you going to be able to actually make that happen? And we're all familiar with that term. People spend more time planning a 2 week vacation than we do planning our retirement. It's an interesting phrase, and I think it's very much a true phrase that goes directly to what it is that I'm attempting to articulate here is that my vacation is a month away. So I'm going to really dial that in because that's immediate. I can see it happening. In fact, maybe I've been to the place where I'm going before and I'm really excited to get back. And so I can see myself arriving at my destination. I can see myself and feel the feelings, how I'm going to experience being there and the excitement and the realness of it and all the feelings and the experiences that I'm going to have. It definitely makes sense versus retirement. Something that old people do, something that maybe that's something I'll do at some point. But the unfortunate reality is that it's incumbent upon us as individuals to do this because long gone for the majority of us are the days of pensions, where you would work at the same company for 30 years, 50 years, retire, and then receive a pension for the rest of your life. So you didn't have to worry about putting money aside for yourself. But because that's no longer the case since really the 80s and the 90s, we need to make sure that we are positioning ourselves to get what it is that we want. So that shift, it's been hard for us. It's been hard for me. It's been hard for the people I work with, and it's no doubt difficult and weird for you to get your brain around it also. But just to level set, right now, about 60 to 70% of Americans in the United States have access to a 401k or some kind of retirement plan through their work. So that's a good thing. That doesn't mean they're actually participating because about half of those people that have access, we said 60 to 70, so let's go 70. Only half of those people, so 35% of those people are actually putting money into it. About half of United States workers, so people that are actually in the employment market, don't have any money saved for retirement at all. So that's certainly not a good thing. In recent studies slash surveys slash questions that people have asked and they've responded to, apparently about 80% of workers feel they are responsible and they are at least making some effort to put a plan together, but only about 25% have an actual written plan or clearly defined strategy. So this is going back to the idea that, yeah, I intellectually know that I'm supposed to be doing this stuff, but I'm actually not. I mean, goal setting, don't get me started. Only 3% of us have written goals. And we all know the importance of goal setting. So that's all that I'm going to say about that. So that 25% of people have actually written plan is pretty good. That is pretty good. So why is that? Everything that we're talking about, it's just I got a lot going on. I'm a busy person. I've got to, I got kids to drop off and pick up and food to eat and job to do and this, that, and the other thing. But fear of the unknown is also something that will stop us from doing this. Fear of screwing up, fear of doing the wrong thing. And once I start stacking up, this, that, this, then the wall is too big for me to see over, and I'm going to punt. I'm going to worry about this later. I'm going to kick the can down the road, however you want to think about it. And this is certainly something that I'm guilty of when something becomes too complicated, mildly overwhelming, or completely overwhelming, that I'm not going to do it anymore. So I think that that's a big part of it. I think that there's just a lack of understanding on how this stuff works. The term financial literacy is pretty banged up at this point. But if I don't understand how my credit cards work, if I don't understand how how to save for a down payment or how to qualify for a loan or the process of buying a home, or I don't understand mutual funds, I don't understand my 401k, I don't understand taxes, that's a lot. That is a lot of things. And I talked about making that mistake. There's uncertainty about the future. I don't even know if I'm going to retire, or just so many different things. And then the economy is changing and the stock market's up and down, and it's now a good time to invest, and just not really getting super clear in what I want my future to look like because it is so abstract that I can't put myself in that situation. I was literally driving and dropping my kids off at wherever they were going today, and I saw a nice older elderly couple walking down the street for like a morning walk. And if that had been me driving the car, seeing those people 20 years ago, I would have said, I wonder what those old people are doing. Today, it was like, oh, that looks like a nice way to start the day when you're retired. And I actually see myself doing things that in recent memory I would have never seen myself doing. So it is a tricky thing and it's superhuman to do that. But we do need to get ourselves to the point where we can actually see ourselves in these situations. Or you don't need to do that so long as you're just saving the right amount and doing all the stuff. Not everything that we're doing needs to be attached to some greater purpose or why. Sometimes we just do it. And the difference there or with this is that a lot of the things that we just do is because we're compelled to do them. I'm compelled to file my taxes. I'm compelled to buy car insurance where I live. So there's not a question about that. I just do it. But because I'm not compelled to save for retirement, I don't just do that. So if you can get to the point where you're just putting 20% of your income into your 401k plan, well, then you've probably taken care of a lot of the heavy lifting. Would it be better if you had a written plan? Would it be better if you thought really deeply about how you're going to spend your time in retirement? Yeah, of course, that would be better, but at least you are doing something and you're doing the heavy lifting. The thing about financial planning is that it's really hard to plan your finances if there's no money. We can make plans, but we can't put it to work. If we're just living paycheck to paycheck and there's nothing to plan, well, we have more work to do. But if you're in the position where you've got cash and you're just throwing a bunch, you're saving a ton and you're investing a ton and it's growing, well, that's an amazing first step. So I talked about the different biases that we have, rather not necessarily the biases we have. We preference the immediate. I preference thinking about where I'm going to go out for dinner and what I'm going to do at the beach and kind of drinks I'm going to have, whatever excursions I'm going to go on my vacation. It's how I'm going to spend my time while I'm not working, when I'm with my family. So that is where I am preferencing now over the future is just a lot of abstraction there. So there's a lot of emotional stuff that goes along with this. There's procrastination that goes along with it. So much of this, the alleviation or the path around these things or through these problems is understanding. So having a good sense of and a good understanding of how to do the thing that you want to do is pretty obvious, but also consumable. If I am trying to understand the world of personal finance, well, gosh, I can't pick that up. I don't know where the handles are. But if it's my desire to understand how the target date fund inside of my 401k plan works, well, I can get my brain around that. I can pull up a YouTube video, I can read a blog post, I can educate myself. And so small bites, clear actionable steps, clear actionable goals, that's what it's all about. You can't eat the entire elephant in one bite. It takes one bite at a time. So breaking down the idea of retirement into smaller, more manageable, actionable goals, that's what it's all about. I'm a pretty visual person, and I imagine that you are too, even though, well, maybe you're watching me, but potentially you're just listening to me. And but from the perspective of I'm a visual person, I like to think about it as a map where you are here, and then there's X marks the spot, and then there's the path that I'm going to be going on. There are pitfalls to avoid. There are mountain ranges to either go over the top of or to go around. There are rivers and lakes that I have to navigate. So all of these things. And when we're talking about your personal financial picture, the map, if it says retirement planning, you are here, and then financial security, I think should be the first milestone or checkpoint that we want to get to. So how do we get there? The big things there are understanding your cash flow, keeping a personal budget, eliminating consumer debt like credit cards, getting a down payment for a home, getting your emergency fund fully funded, and then starting to fund your retirement account. So starting to make contributions to your 401k or an IRA, whatever it might be. Those are all actionable steps along the way. And what makes Dave Ramsey so great is a lot of things. He's a common sense communicator, so he's really easy to understand. He's straightforward. He doesn't sugarcoat things. And I think most importantly is it's simple steps. It's his baby steps. And it's focus. Because when we are trying to focus on too many different things, we're not really focused on anything at all. Just like you can't have 10 things being the most important thing, only one thing can be the most important thing. Prioritization is a very real thing. Something has to be at the top of the list. And then by very nature of how that goes is other things will be towards the bottom or at the actual bottom. But understanding these are the steps that it's going to take for me to move from where I am today to financial security, which will then allow me to pursue whatever level of personal financial experience that I'm interested in. You can call it success, you can call it getting rich, you can call it just financial freedom, whatever term you are interested in. The first step is whatever the first step might be. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but just understanding how the process actually works and the steps that need to be taken. Technology can be certainly overwhelming. It's new all the time and it's ever changing and it's going to continue to be that way. And it's going to do things that we are going to consider to be wonderful and serendipitous, and then it's going to do things that we're going to think are really, really terrible and that very well could be extremely terrible. And we see that with social media and everything else. But when we use technology for good instead of evil, particularly when it comes to our personal finances and saving and investing, and in the context of this conversation, saving money for retirement, there are so many wonderful things that a current iteration of your 401k at work can help you with. Things like automatic enrollment, increasing contributions every year. We need little nudges. And if we're able to automate these nudges, that's just going to help us along. Because it's one thing to go from zero to saving. If I'm not saving anything at all, and all of a sudden I start saving things, well, that's an incredible shift right there. We learned in physics that an object at rest is going to stay at rest unless it's acted on by an outside object. So if you're just sitting there and you're trying to get off the couch and go exercise, well, that's a Herculean effort. If you're not currently saving and then all of a sudden you are, well, that's an incredible thing. You've moved from not doing anything to now you're a saver and an investor. That's awesome. That's exciting. Should be really exciting. So getting these nudges where we are prompted to increase contributions, we're prompted to rebalance portfolios, all those things, so we can automate that. It's a lot easier. So you put all that stuff together and it makes this stuff mildly formidable, but it need not be. It need not be. This is all stuff you're perfectly capable of doing on your own. You're listening to this or watching this, so you are capable of picking something out because you think that it's going to be of value to you, either from an entertainment standpoint or it's going to give you some information that you didn't know that's going to get you closer to what you want. I think that that's what it's all about. So I want to break down just a brief example of Sandy. She's a 35-year-old female making $40,000 a year. She's got $4,000 in credit card debt. Her objectives are to pay off that credit card debt, to get an emergency fund saved up of $9,000, and she wants to save or accumulate $500,000, $500,000 in her 401k. So I'm not going to give you any financial advice here, but what steps could we coach Sandy on? So we want to break it down into manageable steps. Maybe this is a fact pattern that is familiar to you. Maybe you make way more money. Maybe you make less. Maybe you have more credit card debt, whatever. The whole idea here is I want to reduce the overwhelming nature of a large number of tasks and just get Sandy here on a path towards financial security. So we could start by paying off her credit card debt of $4,000. So first we have to figure out the details, how much you're currently paying, what the interest rate is, so the annual percentage rate, all of these kinds of things. Just get all the details and information. We want to help Sandy put a budget together. So we want to put a budget that accounts for money coming in, so your income, your expenses, your fixed expenses, and your discretionary spending. And I think that just knowing and going through that exercise is such a wonderful thing. There's lots of great ways to budget, but just doing something, getting something going and starting to track your spending and your cash flow, I think is a really important thing. And then from there, we want to pick a debt repayment strategy. So with that 9,000, or rather, the $4,000 in credit card debt that Sandy has, we can do one of two ways. You can either do the avalanche method or the snowball method, Sandy. And the avalanche method says that we are analytical, motivated, driven people. And so what we want to do is determine if there are numerous cards that have balances on them that we want to pay off. The avalanche method says that you start with the card or the balance that has the highest annual percentage rate, the highest interest rate, regardless of the balance on that account. You start with that one and you pay it off first, and then you go on to the next highest annual percentage rate, so on and so forth. The snowball method is not the opposite, but just a different way. And instead of worrying about what the annual percentage rates are, you start with the smallest balance first. So if you have three cards, one has, in this example, a $2,000 balance, one has a $1,000 balance, or $1,200, and one has an $800 balance, totaling $4,000. You start with the smallest balance, so the $800 balance account first. Why is that? I think that this is what Dave Ramsey appreciates or advocates for, because it takes into consideration human nature and human behavior. That says that, you know what, we want to develop momentum. We want to develop confidence. We want to develop grittiness. And that's what you get when you decide, I am going to pay off this $800 credit card. I'm going to focus all my attention and energy and money on resources on getting this thing knocked off, getting that balance zeroed out. So maybe it takes you a little while, but as you're doing it, you're proving to yourself that you're somebody who's capable of making a plan and sticking to it. Then you can say, oh my gosh, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. And of course, as we are um, going through the process of paying this off, we're not going to be using credit cards anymore. We're not going to be rolling balances over. Um, Setting a plan for this, a big part of what we want to do with Sandy is when we're going through the household budget, we're going to figure out how much free money there is, free cash flow. Is there any? And based on that, how much do we have? And then that's going to help us to determine how long it's going to take Sandy to pay off these credit cards. So if Sandy can afford 300 bucks a month, she will be able to pay off her credit card debt in about 14 months. Okay, the whole 4,000. So that's awesome. And I bet that once Sandy gets some momentum going, that number's going to go up because she's going to get excited about it because it's what happens to all of us. Then the next step is if I want a $9,000 emergency fund, start with a small goal. The ultimate goal is the 9,000, but we wanted to do because the paying off the debt was a priority, we can suggest starting with a smaller goal, say $1,000. So I think that that is a wonderful step right there is to set a goal of saving $1,000 in an account that's separate from your everyday checking account. And that's the seeds at the beginning of your greater emergency fund, which in Sandy's case, she wants to have $9,000 saved up. So while we are potentially doing that, if there is additional money, Sandy can say, okay, I'm going to do this in 14 months, but maybe I can do this at the same time. I can get some money going towards my emergency fund as well. Even if it's $100, that makes a big deal over time. So if for Sandy, helping the milestone, or rather hit the milestone of a $9,000 into achievable milestones, reaching $3,000 might be the first, followed by six, and then finally nine. Um, each of those is going to give her a really good sense of progress, just like if with the snowball method, you're doing one account at a time. So you're getting there. Again, we can't do all this stuff all at once, but incrementally and embracing the incremental progress is such a huge key to all of this. The next thing we talked about was if we're trying to get $500,000 saved for our retirement, what is that going to take? And assuming that she wants to retire at age 65 and she's 35 years old, she's got 30 years to do that. So if you have, in this case, Sandy does work at a company that offers a 401k and it even offers a 401k match. And so that's an incredible thing. People talk about a 401k match as free money, and that's a fine way to think about it. You can think about it however you want. You could feel about it however you want. But I consider that to be part of your employee benefits package. If your employer is offering you a match, that is part of your benefits package. That is money that is coming to you that you are absolutely entitled to. So if you are in a position like Sandy where there is a 401k match, it's important that you understand how the matching formula works because sometimes it's the company will match 3% up to the first 3%, and then 50% on the next 1% or 2%, whatever that formula is. Just understand how much do I need to contribute in order to get the full match. You can ask your human resources leader, whoever is within your organization who's in charge of the retirement plan or your benefits. They can help you with that, or you can reach out to the company that is offering the plan. Maybe it's Fidelity or Empower or John Hancock or ADP or whatever, and figure out what that is. So in this example, if her employer matches 4%, she could contribute at least 4% to get the full match. And then she's putting in 4, but she's really getting 8%. So that's a really powerful thing. And figuring out how much she can be saving, how much Sandy you can be saving. More importantly, well, that's the first step is let's figure out how much we can, and then B, so if you're putting in 4%, the company's putting in, or rather you put in 5, the company's putting in 4, you're at 9% of how much money that you are making going into your account. That's an awesome starting point. But what we want to figure out is how much she actually needs to get to the $500,000. And that is the number that we are really looking for in this example. And for you, it's a really, really simple calculation within, again, most contemporary modern 401ks within the platform. You can log into your account and you can say, based on my information, how much do I need to be saving? How much do I need to be putting aside in order to achieve the goal, in this example, $500,000 over the course of the next 30 years? And then the final number that you're going to need, because they're going to take into consideration the match, is what the interest rate is. Because if you're getting a 20% interest rate of return on your money, it's going to be easier for you to save that money. If you're getting a 3% rate of return or interest rate on your money, it's going to take you a lot longer. So I like to use 8% because I think that that's a reasonable number. The stock market does not return on a straight line. So in a lot of ways, I think that that would be better, be easier to plan for, but we know that it goes up and down. So what's the actual real return over time? That's what we're trying to get at. I think that 8% is a pretty reasonable number. Okay, so that is the next thing. And what you can do is you can also break that down into smaller goals. So you could say, you know what, within 5 years, I want to get to 25,000 in my 401k. Okay, then I can really stay motivated. And then I'm going to see the power of compound interest at work, because 8% on zero is still zero, and 8% on $100, it's better than zero, but 8% on $25,000 is a meaningful amount of money. And I'm going to move from the abstract to the very, very real pretty quick. Once I open up my 401k account, I see, oh my gosh, I've got $100,000 saved up. This is incredible. Get 8% on that. Well, it's obviously $108,000 at the end of the year, even if you didn't put any money in. But you will continue to be making contributions. You will continue to be putting more money in and more contributions. And it's just nothing but a really, 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 really positive, virtuous cycle. The thing here is that we want to break down everything that we're trying to do into accessible, manageable, and actionable steps. If you don't think that it's ever going to be possible, if you can't see a way to making it happen, then it's not going to happen. But if you were able to do it, then that would be the trick. Just to close the loop on Sandy here, because I realized I don't think that I gave you the actual numbers. So if you're 35 years old and you want to accomplish, or rather save $500,000 by age 65, assuming an 8% rate of return, Sandy or you would need to put in $335 a month. Okay. So if you want to save $1 million, which I think is a better goal because money is becoming less valuable and things are becoming more expensive, something like that, just double that number. So $670 a month. If you're 35 years old and an 8% rate of return will get you $1 million. But again, to reinforce this with Sandy, you're 35 years old, you want to save $500,000 by age 65, you need to be putting in $335 a month. I think that that is an empowering thing. I hope, hopefully, that gives you a map of the territory. Financial security. What is financial security? Well, for me, it is having a fully funded emergency fund, paying off your credit cards, and saving money for yourself. Once you've done those things, out of credit card debt, fully funded emergency fund, you're saving money, you've been saving. I think that that's financial security. I think that that's financial peace of mind. And when you've accomplished those things, it could take you 2 years, 3 years, but it's worth it because you've developed so many wonderful skills, so many wonderful new habits. You've proven to yourself that you can do these things. You develop this grit and just lots of virtuous, wonderful things. So as I always say when I close the show, there's just never going to be anybody more interested in your financial success than you are. So you have to act accordingly. That's essentially what this is. This is how you act accordingly. This is how you take your financial future into your own hands and accept ownership and responsibility of it. And you are fully capable. You are worthy. You are even deserving of these things, but you're not entitled to them. So we have to get to work So let's just do it. Let's just get to work.